I'm not sure where today's podcast is going to be meeting you, but wherever you are, this one is very, very special. It's with a very dear friend of mine, Rick Cowley, who has been one of the most influential voices in my life as an entrepreneur, specifically helping me find peace, helping me find direction and guidance in this crazy journey of entrepreneurship. I joined Rick when I was in the midst of the worst anxiety that I ever had in my life, to the point where I was being hospitalized from it. And Rick sort of guided me to where I am today in a really deep and profound way. Rick joins me in the studio now, where we talk about his life-changing work that he's done for more than a decade, more than 65 retreats with hundreds, probably thousands actually, of entrepreneurs, business leaders, business owners, and just everyday people that are craving to find a deeper sense of meaning in their lives. So no matter where this message finds you today, I invite you to relax, sit down, and listen to a beautiful conversation with one of life's beautiful people, Rick Cowley. It's really a special one. I think you're going to enjoy it. All right. So good to have you here, brother. How are you, Rick?
Good. Thanks, Adam. I'm great. I woke up at 4 this morning to come here from a family holiday, but it worked out perfectly as a stop on my way back home. So to walk in here and see you on the phone and see this space that I've seen in some of your videos and your social media stuff, this is a beautiful creation. I'm very excited, very honored to be here.
Yeah, I was thinking before you came, and thank you for saying that, but it's really cool that you're one of our first guests here on the couch, because you really are instrumental in me being here doing this work now in a new iteration of myself. For the guests listening to this, Rick and I have a very special friendship that goes back a number of years, and Rick has been a really pivotal person in my life in terms of finding purpose and finding meaning as an entrepreneur. So if you're listening to this today and you're overwhelmed, you are maybe in a black space, which I was when I met Rick. Maybe you're feeling like, what's the point of life? Don't want to build up too much pressure on you here, Rick, but that pretty much describes where I was. I was in a very dire place when I met you, not struggling with addictions, but borderline depression. And from the outside, I looked like I was doing great. I was living in Los Angeles. I had a booming animation company. I had a fancy home in Beverly Hills, and I was absolutely dying inside. And a friend actually recommended me to you, or recommended you to me rather. And she said to me, Adam, you need to go see Rick. And I think a lot of people over the years have said those exact words due to the work that you do. And so I did that, and we'll dive into what that means for those of you listening to go see Rick. But essentially, at the time, I remember being in Los Angeles, going to your website and reading what you had to say there. And it was so beautifully articulated, authentically, no screaming headlines, no sales pitch, just an authentic human communication around the work that you were doing and who it was right for, that resonated so deeply that I couldn't wait to actually have my call with you. And not long after, I found myself on a little island called Lombongan off the coast of Sanur, Bali, to meet this dude, Rick. And it was life-changing. And we might dive into that, that experience I had with you a bit as well, because it was profound. But Rick, in your own words, what led you to do the work that you do today? Like, what was the seminal moment in your life that led you into creating VysionQuest and doing this kind of soulful work for more than a decade now?
Well, the seed for the process and the work that I do was planted firmly when I had leukemia at 21 years old. And this is a cool question to be asked, because this is a question that I ask others when I work with them about looking at how one of your greatest creations in your life came to reality from the time that it wasn't even an idea yet. Because there's a time when you don't even know that you have a dream or you have a purpose, and then somehow it gets put in your mind. And then what's the process that it goes through? How did you invite that idea into your into your awareness, and then how did you nurture it till it became, just this reality. So for me, yeah, that really happened when I had leukemia at 21 years old. And it was, it was really scary. It was very uncomfortable. It was, I was faced with this uncertainty of, would I be alive in a year or 6 months or 1 month? And when I got sick, I was really sick. Like I got very physically sick. I got sick when I was in Indonesia after living there for a year on a very remote island is where I actually fell sick. So it was like island hopping back to the States where, I'm from, and getting my first treatment in Hawaii. And that was a total, just an interrupt in my life. And, I was going to university. I was kind of a pretty typical 21-year-old. I'd always been a seeker, always interested in philosophical ideas and spiritual ideas and deeper experiences. And, pretty sensitive soul, and liked to feel a lot. I like to feel things, I like to feel connection with people and connection with life and the great flow, as I like to call it. And in that time, the rug gets pulled out from under you when you're faced with a diagnosis like that, like an illness like that. And it was, I think what was unique about it was I was 21 years old. Most 21-year-olds are just thinking about partying and girls or guys or passing their exams. And I wasn't really into university. It was just kind of like what was expected of me, and almost like a holding pattern, until I had to become an adult. And this just pulled the rug out from under me and made me question, ask the biggest questions in life, like, who am I? What do I really want my life to be about? What do I want to create? What would I love my work to be? What would I love my impact to be, my influence on people? And when you're faced with your mortality like that, then it kind of brings everything from like, yes, someday I'm going to volunteer, or I'm going to create this service or this product, or, be part of this organization, to going, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be around in a month. Like this right here is this beautiful, sweet moment, like the nectar of life is happening right now. We have to drink it right now. So the being forced to face my mortality, and then starting to dialogue with a deeper part of myself, which came through a mentor that I had at the time, who kind of taught me and helped me tune into that deeper voice inside of myself, which, as you know, is exactly what I do for people. And it wasn't until, many years later that I started doing this work that I discovered that I have a knack for that, for making the space to guide other people back to that subtle whisper of their soul inside, and hear answers for their life about whatever questions they want to ask. So that was where the seed was planted, and then it was many years until I actually ran my first retreat, and that was another huge like turning point in my life, where I'm like, okay, this is a whole new experience for me of making a difference for people and feeling a sense of fulfillment and purpose, and that's something that I've created and an experience that I've facilitated for people can have a profound and life-changing effect. And I haven't looked back since then. This has been my life's work, just developing this and supporting people through the process and improving it.
Yeah, I think in today's world, where there is so much to pull us away from ourselves, right? We're constantly looking outwards, and we've constantly got social media and comparing ourselves with what's going on in the pace of life. We just generally move away from that being at peace and with ourselves for a moment and connected. And it's actually really like a disease, right? It's disease of the soul to just completely lose sight of who you are, where you are. And I'm sure there's plenty of people listening to this that honestly don't know where they are, which way's up anymore, which is where I was when I found you. I was as I said, living in Los Angeles and suffering from severe anxiety, like completely. First time I had it, I thought I was having a heart attack. I was underneath my animation studio on Hollywood Boulevard, and I went downstairs with one of my staff members to go get a coffee, and I just felt my heart race. And I thought, oh my God, what's happening? Call an ambulance. And I was on the floor lying there, and they picked me up in a fire truck, as they do in LA. The fireys pick up people as an ambulance and rush me to hospital. And then for months after, I suffered from seriously acute anxiety attacks to the point where I was almost agoraphobic and didn't want to go outside for a period of time. And then when I flew to Bali and started to work with you, what you've just articulated, helping people sort of come home to themselves and to their soul and really ask those really basic questions, and creating the space for it that is a skill that you do so well. And I'd like to dive into that very, very experience in a minute, but I just wanted to ask you, were you faced with that dire a diagnosis, that it was like it could be a month, it could be 3 months, or you might make it? That must have been terrifying.
Yeah, I think the scariest and the most difficult thing was just that I was so sick. When I fell sick, it was like a switch just flipped in my body. My immune system just turned off, and I'm on this island in the middle of nowhere in eastern Indonesia. So we'd fly or take a boat to the next island and just rest for a couple of days, expecting that I would get better, but I didn't. I would just keep getting worse, and it got to where it was very difficult for me to eat because I had like a sore throat on steroids. So it was like ulcers opened up in my throat. So it was very painful to eat, painful to drink, high fever. So by the time I got medical treatment, I was like a skeleton. Like I was 30 pounds lighter than I am now. And, went straight to the hospital. My parents flew to Hawaii and met me there. So that was about a month period of recovery right then, where it was just, I couldn't eat, could barely drink, just was on like IV, nutrition and hydration. And, so that was the hardest, scariest part. And I was so sick that when they said, we suspect Rick has leukemia, I was so sick. All I just wanted was more Demerol to numb the pain that was in my throat. And so it was much more scary for my parents who were there, who had to stand by my bedside looking at me and get this news. And I remember, maybe it was years later, they told me when they got that news, they went into the hallway and to cry, like afterwards, and just bawled their eyes out and held each other because they didn't want to do it in front of me, So in a way, it's even worse for the parents. And as a parent now, I could say that I would much rather get sick myself, than see my child sick. Mm-hmm. But, they said this is one of the most successfully treated leukemias, and that because of my age being 21, that I would bounce back from the chemotherapy quickly, which I did. It's definitely not a fun process to go through. It was about 4 months of chemotherapy, but I bounced back and regained all my weight and got strong and healthy. And this was I'm 47, I was 21, so it was 26 years ago.
You've had a lot of surfing since then.
Yep.
So let's go back to that time where you are starting off VysionQuest. Where did you first begin the journey of helping others? And can you just walk us through how you started, and then we'll talk about VysionQuest as a program and what it does and why it does it so well. And I'll share my personal experience for the listeners as well, having done it twice now. But where did it start?
It started, the very first version of it started as a retreat that I ran for young adult cancer survivors. And this was something that I'd wanted to do, some sort of guided experience for people to help them reconnect with themselves and find their flow again in life. Like that was the theme when I first started. You remember when you did it, it was called Surf Life.
Yes.
So, and the reason that I decided to work with young adult cancer survivors is because that was a group that I knew that I could help, and I didn't have the confidence yet to kind of take it into the world and work with professionals and business owners like I do now. And yeah, I think that was like my bridge to offering what I truly wanted to do. But before I had that proven track record and that self-belief, I had to find that bridge. And I knew that young adult cancer survivors, even if I sucked at it, even if the program wasn't good, even if the questions weren't good, that just seeing me healthy, I had a beautiful young family. We all kind of, pitched in a bit for the retreat, and I raised money, so there was no charge for the participants. And I just I had to find my own bridge to bring it into reality before I'd proven myself or proven the worth of the program. So, and what happened was there really was an experience of surfing life. Like, we were in a flow, and you've been to the retreat. It's like you're in like an alternate time warp reality kind of a thing. Like, time just flows, the activities flow, what's happening inside of you, there's a lot of flow of energy inside of you, and you're accessing deeper parts of you. You're accessing this information about what is your true direction, who are you, what do you want. And so that experience, that first retreat, was really magical. It was very powerful for the participants. There was a lot of moments where we're laughing out loud, a lot of moments where we're in tears together, or someone sharing something, and you know that experience as well. And I think that combination of where the funniest stuff happens and everyone's just pissing their pants, laughing and having a great time and just being their silly selves, as well as these moments of really deep, raw honesty about their failures, their fears, their dreams, their hopes. It's such a beautiful combination. So that first retreat is when, I mentioned, really redirected my life, where I went, this works, I can make it better. And I went on to run a number of more young adult cancer survivor retreats. I did about 6 of those. And then when I went through a big change in my life and kind of reinvented myself and relocated to Bali, where that was my base for many years, and started running the retreats for entrepreneurs and professionals who were like you, kind of had achieved some success, but were at a point where they felt empty and unfulfilled, and they're going, well, there's got to be more. There's got to be more meaning than this. There's got to be, I must have a bigger purpose than this. Yeah.
So for the listeners here, the retreat, after that, when you went into Bali and you started doing them, I guess the first few with the cancer survivors, you were getting down the structure of the retreat. And then you started the Surf Life retreats, which evolved into VysionQuest. So those first Surf Life retreats that I went to, maybe you could just talk quickly about, because for people listening, many haven't been to a retreat. And it's not like we all sit around and drop ayahuasca at these things. These are completely unassisted, so to speak. But how long are they? How is it sort of roughly structured? Just so people can get that little side of their brain that's going, but what do you do and how do you do it? Sort of get that done, then we'll talk about the meat and potatoes a bit.
Sure, good idea. And when I ran my first retreat, I'd never been on a retreat before. Mm-hmm. So it really was a blank slate. And I just went, okay, what would be the most amazing experience that I would want to do? Yeah. What would be the most fun and fulfilling thing that I would want to, participate in myself? And that's what I created and just improved from there. And so, and it has gone through many iterations over the years. When you did it, there was a workbook, a printed workbook. Is that right? Yep. But before that, there wasn't a workbook. I would just write a question on a piece of paper, put it in the middle of the table, and we'd sit down, do a little breathing, and then people would look at that question and journal the answer to it. But right now, it's become a system that's just been improved over these 13 years of doing it and 60 plus retreats. And the backbone of the experience is the VysionQuest program, which is a sequence of 28 modules. Each module has a guided meditation and a writing exercise. The writing exercise can consist of a few different questions. Sometimes they build on each other. And basically, the process isn't about filling you up with more ideas. I'm not there to teach or to pump you up or hype you up. I'm there to make a space and help you find a state where you are tuning out the noise. The conscious thinking mind is chilling out and moving to the side, and you're able to hear that deeper voice inside of you and listen to it and write down what it's telling you. And the exercises do build on each other, and they happen in a certain sequence because we have to take care of some things in order for you to hear that deeper voice. And namely, that's the fear. And the fear is usually what keeps that kind of treasure chest inside of you hidden. So we have to do something with the fear to distract it or pacify it so that you can open up that chest and see what's in there.
Yeah, I remember the first time I did it on the last day when you brought it all together, and the madness of your process becomes very clear with the last exercise, and everything we'd done pre sort of built up like a great film or a novel or a book. All the narratives came together, and you're left with this one shining outcome, which I don't want to say too much because I'd like people to go and experience it. But it was very, very powerful. And I might share my experience of what you've described there, because I think for the listeners, they would find it powerful. And I want to try and take them on the boat, so to speak, and the experience, because I've been around personal development and seminars for a long time, and there's just something magical about going off together to a live event, whether it's a day with Tony Robbins or something. When you get out of your environment and you go to a new environment and hang out with a group of people that are all as crazy as you, as opposed to feeling like you're the crazy one in life, or wanting more, wanting to got that itch that you can't scratch kind of thing. So for me, I went from Los Angeles super stressed, suffering from serious anxiety. And for context, it was when all that terrorism stuff was going on, and there was that crazy butcher called John. I don't know if you remember this terrorist called John, this young guy, and he was cutting people's heads off with a bread knife on camera and terrorizing the world. I think it was John or something like that. That was his crazy nickname. And it really, really affected me. And there was just something inside of me that was just not afraid, just sad about the state of the world. And I was in LA, and I didn't have a lot of old friends there that I'd known. There was sirens 24/7. I was running 3 companies. And anyway, I just wasn't in a great place. So I went over to Bali, got into Denpasar, and then to Sanur, following the instructions to this sort of fishing area. And then it was at the markets where the boats are there. And I've been back many times since, and I've done a lot of work there with the John Fawcett Foundation, which is a whole nother thing that came out of our time together. But I remember meeting you for the first time there on the edge where the wooden boats were, and then we caught that boat over to Lombok. And so you're on this little boat off an island. Then we went over to Lombok, and then we got on these scooters. There's sort of like this frenzy of local Balinese people going, scooter, scooter, scooter. We get on a scooter, and then we go across that bridge, that yellow bridge, to another little island where you had booked out this whole little resort with like 5 or 6 rooms. Jenny's place is an Australian woman that owned it.
8 rooms.
What's that? 8 rooms, yeah. So there's 8 rooms. It's fully catered. And I'm still wound up in LA time, really, when I get there. And I was there, I think, a day or something before most people, and you were there. And that was the first time we got to sit down. It was actually an early dinner. And I don't know if you remember this, but I settled into my room, and you said, hey, come, we'll have dinner together at 6 o'clock or something. And so here we are, and it's this sort of panoramic, breathtaking view over the Indian Ocean, I think it is, up there. And so I sit down opposite you, and we're the only ones sitting there under this sort of grass-roofed rotunda. And you said to me, how you doing? And I was like, you said it in a way that you actually were interested in the answer. And I was like, I don't think you really want to dig into that too much. And of course, in your way, you just sort of looked at me silently. And anyways, I told you of my troubles and how I was suffering from anxiety and depression. And I was waiting for some profound intervention. And you said to me, Adam, I want you to pay attention to the salad when it comes out. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me. I've thrown it all the way to Bali to listen to this hippie dick about fucking salad. So the lovely young girl comes out and she puts down our salads before the main meal. And I'm like, you go, like, you said to me, Adam, the ingredients in this salad, these guys went ashore this morning, early in the morning to the markets, and would have hand-picked that out of the best stuff that there was available. And they've gone over on the boat and they're back. And then all day they would be preparing the food that is going to be served to us in about 20 minutes' time. And here we are sitting on this, on this table. And you said, these guys over there, city guys over there, and you waved to, you knew them all, they're all family. They built this for their bare hands. They carried the rocks from the quarry down the bottom. They laboured for 3 months under the Balinese sun to lay these bricks and to put up these logs and to put this roof on. For us to just sit here and be served like kings. And all of a sudden I felt like an enormous asshole, and I realised, how in my head I was, and how I was so focused on my problems of living in Los Angeles with a multi-million-dollar business and, all the stuff that's so Instagrammable, that I failed to notice in that moment just how insanely blessed I was. And you said, the crazy part is, Adam, she's going to come back in about 10 minutes and she's going to ask us how this salad is, and she's really going to want to know if we're happy, because these people really want us to be happy as guests on their island here, because they're never going to go anywhere. This is their life. They're not going to be in Italy in summertime. They're never going to go to Australia. This is their life. This is what they do. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm sitting here being fed like a king, overlooking this unbelievable ocean, and I'm so lost and so far from home spiritually that I don't even know what's going on in my own life. I feel like I'm in a spaceship in my own reality, And that is Western life sometimes. That's how far away from home we can get. And then that started to really open me up for the experience to come over the next few days. And those early morning writing sessions that you'd say, all right, guys, no speaking, silent sessions until after morning exercise, physical. So for everyone listening, what that entailed was we would get up before the sunrise, and Rick would set out. There was 8 of us, I think, at the retreat, or 6 or something. We each had our own little private table right on the edge overlooking the ocean, and a candle. And on the table was a question. So we'd take our journal, the question was on the table, and we couldn't talk to anybody else, and it was no sunrise. And you taught us that we do that work then because we are the closest to our dream state. It is before the world invades our mind. It's the closest to spirit that we are all day. And so with a degree of cynicism, I just surrendered to the process. And once that pen started moving with questions that were very, very well considered based on the life history that you've had, I started to hear that voice crystal clear, like it was literally dying to be heard. And it'd be like, oh my God, thank God, Rick. Big hug from that little voice. Like, finally, you've made this guy slow down and actually listen to me for a minute, because I got some shit we need to talk about. And then over the coming, I think there were 4 or 5 days back then, I can't remember. Yeah,
would have been, I think it was a week.
A week, yeah. Over the course of that week, we have these massive aha moments and shit that's coming out of us that has just been waiting to come out for a long time. And then we would do our morning movement. And you played that song. Every time I hear that musician, Narco, it's like your favorite dude, right? Yeah. Medicine for the soul. Yeah. And we would do, I remember sitting around the first yoga session, and you guys were all sitting there with your legs crossed, comfortable on the floor, and you're like, well, how would you describe a good week here from an exercise point of view? And when it got to me, I was like, if I could just sit here and not be in massive pain in my knees and my hips, that would be a huge win. Like, because I couldn't even sit without pain in my knees and hips and all the rest. I just realized I'm just a work machine. Nothing. So this physical side as well. But that was my experience of my first VysionQuest. That was just life-changing. And I can tell more about what happened during that week, but maybe you want to reflect or react to that before I tell you the rest of that story, because it gets better.
Yeah. It's so fun to hear your story of it, because it brings up key parts of the process and memories that are specific to you and your retreat, but then just memories of how things came to be, like how we started doing the Silent Sunrise sessions. And the first thing I want to say is that message of be appreciative, be grateful for your life, for all of your blessings and your achievements, and just the fact that you're still kicking around this earth today. You got another day here. I know that message landed deeply with you, because that's been, you've shared that message on stages in front of thousands of people, reminding people, hey, if you live in Australia, you live in the US, you are one of the most blessed people on this planet. Don't forget it. Start from there.
It is that one singular idea, so simple. It's easy to dismiss as like personal development and trite and all of that. But that one singular thing, in my opinion, is a cure-all for anxiety, sadness, not clinical perhaps, but the fastest route to happiness is gratitude, and it's free, like genuine gratitude, and you can do it at any time of the day. Stop focusing on your problem and start focusing on your blessings. It's so simple. It sounds like a meme, but it's life-changing.
Yeah. And we like you said, we've heard this idea 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and yet we can sit here and have a home and a car and a family and money in the bank and success and still go, I just don't really have much to be grateful for. You don't feel it. Like, you can think about it, you can think about these things, but it's not connecting like this sense of gratitude, like a gratitude that can move you to tears for how rich your life is and how much you've been given. And that's that's one of the key kind of stages in the process. And we've got some sneaky tools that work to connect you with a sense of gratitude and just wonder at all you've done and created and given and received in your life. And one point I want to make is that it's difficult to find answers to the questions if you ask the questions directly. So if you go, what do I have to be grateful for? You can find, it kind of depends. If you're already open and the gratitude's flowing, you might be able to connect with that real emotional sense of gratitude. But there are other questions that connect you with a physical sense of gratitude, physical and emotional sense that's different than what am I grateful for? And like what's my purpose? Imagine if I just said, well, Adam, what's your purpose? Ask yourself that question here, fill in this page. There's questions that like prime you, that are asking from different angles, and then all of a sudden you answer the other questions and the purpose appears. What are my dreams? We have to do these other questions kind of go in the back door, because the fear is there trying to guard you and go, no, I don't want you to get that clarity, because that clarity is going to change your life.
And the cynicism too. Yeah. I think, like I remember going, God, seriously, you think the answer to my problems is in a bowl of salad? And you could have said, yeah, actually I do. But you said, just play along with me.
There is a method to it.
There's a method to it, And I think that's very powerful, because we do jump in. Our ego, our fear, our cynicism stops us. And sometimes you need to be in a space where you feel differently, and you have the right mentor to guide you, as you say, with these very carefully constructed questions that are designed to unlock that stuff. It's certainly happened for me.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll tell a little bit more of the story, because I'd been toying with the idea of selling my business, my animation company, in Los Angeles. And on the third day, it was absolutely clear to me that I needed to do that. And I'd had brokers in LA that had been saying, we can sell the business for you. We've got people who would like to buy it, I said, look, here's my financials. I'm going to Bali. And I went to Bali. And I texted them on the Wednesday, and on the Friday, on Lombongan, via a fax machine, I'd sold the company for more than I'd asked for it. I had 2 letters of offer with cover letters faxed to me. It was like what are you? Where are you?
Yeah,
Who has
like
a fax machine
like
anymore, right?
1992 fax machine.
Yeah. So he sends me a fax because there was no internet or whatever was going on. I can't remember, but they faxed it to me, and I accepted the offer. And then I went back to LA and did the handover, and I made some enormous changes while on that island. I signed it in board shorts. I think I've got a photo somewhere of me in board shorts at that big kitchen table in this humble little retreat space in Bali, and then I went back and it was just a life-changing thing to do that, and I discovered my purpose. And I remember, I think my statement was, I'm a fire starter at a slumber party.
Yeah, I remember. Was it fireworks at a slumber party?
Yeah, fireworks at a slumber party. Yeah. Like I was so committed to helping people, because I knew that was my superpower. But because of some stuff that had happened earlier in my life, I turned away from teaching and sharing, but that's what I love to do. But I went on other paths, but I realized there and then a few years later, of course, Reliable Education came to be, and we built this, relatively large, education company and tens of millions of dollars in sales and all of that. But it was actually really fun and soulful, and what I was meant to do all along, and why I always, whenever you were at our events, which is almost always, would call you out and identify, because without you there wouldn't have been a Reliable Education. That's why I went on that path. But
I do want to say I usually recommend to people they don't make any huge decisions in the middle of the process, because that's actually one of the fears people have when they're considering coming. When they sign up, they go, I'm going to have to change everything. Like, this is terrifying.
Some people leave their partners, quit their jobs and go on a pilgrimage, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that stuff, whatever happens is truly meant to happen. And this speeds up the process. So it takes courage to see what's really inside of you that wants to come out. But I usually tell people, because each day you're discovering new things about who you are and your true path. But say you're halfway through, you think, oh, I've got enough I need now. I've seen it all. I'm going to do this decision, but just wait. For most people, for normal people, you're not a normal person. For normal people, I say, just wait until the end, and then if there's a big decision to make, if there's a big change, it's so obvious. It's just the next obvious step. It's not some crazy jumping off a cliff thing. It's just like, this is what's to be done.
But a lot of people, right, their lives careered off course years ago, right? And it's just, they never course corrected, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And decades can go by of not addressing that course correction 2 decades ago. And they find themselves in a really unhappy place, living a life that they never, I was married when I was 19 to the first girl that ever dated me, right? At church. And so, that kind of decision is absolutely life-changing. We were 2 kids that didn't even know ourselves, let alone each other, right? But there are people who are in those kinds of relationships, and not just intimate relationships, but careers, and they've sort of been drawn into this life where they were never consciously choosing as an adult much at all, which is why your work is so interventionary. It's like pulling the car over from the side of the road and going, let's stop for a sec and let's check the map.
Quit, just take a moment. You got to stop driving to take the time to reassess. And, part of it that I was reminded of when you were speaking before was the space that you got to do this work in. It can't be done in your normal chaos. You have to make a sacred space in your life. That's what I call it, a sacred space, where you're interrupting the patterns, where you're whatever habits you have, whatever you reach for when you're uncomfortable or you're bored or first thing in the morning or late in the evening, all that stuff's just, a lot of it's just unconscious, these habits of what you do. And one of the most powerful things you could do is interrupt those habits. So this is whether you do it at home, at the virtual program, which is over 28 days, or the retreat, which is about a week, is you have to make this this space in your life. So it's things like no coffee, no caffeine, no alcohol, those are just two of the most obvious ones. That's like, we just reach for that. We feel tired and we reach for it, or we feel wound up and we reach for it. But those things, that's the energy of the past. Like, it's unconscious, habitual, more of the same. And it has nothing to do with you hearing that deepest voice inside of you. So we have to make this space in your life and in your mind for you to start to hear that deeper voice.
It always amazes me when people are like, oh man, like a week to go to a retreat. And I'm like, dude, this is your life. Like the TV show says, right? Like, it's so important, that work, which is why I went back and did it a second time and had just as transformational experience the second time with a whole different crew. But you're absolutely right there, and it's probably why the retreat industry is booming so much. I have a friend about to go to Bali and do a fitness one, which is a month. It's all food, unlimited access to their workout programs. It's a physical transformation type thing, but you're fully immersed with world-class trainers, world-class gyms, completely new environment. And I think that's what people need. We need real intervention for this work. And so
a reset.
We need a reset. There's so many people that just need to hit the reset button. And then there's other people that want to hit the surprise button. It's just, you've got to shake it up to really get back. And the good news is it's all in there. It's not out there, it's in there. And I find that it's so important. So what are some of the transformations you've seen? Apart from me, you've had hundreds and hundreds of people through there. I mean, it seems to be routinely people just come out just shaking their head going, every person I've referred, and it's a lot, that have been through your program has texted me pretty much afterwards or sent me a video and just said, Adam, I can't thank you enough. It was the best thing I've done for myself as an adult. Is that pretty standard with people?
Without wanting to sound like a wanker, like the process itself and the reliability of it to take people to the deepest place they've ever been inside themselves and bring these answers up to the surface and get this it's like coming home. It's like you just know, okay, this is who I am and this is what I want and what I'm here to do. It works like 97% of the time, where it's one of the most profound experiences in people's lives. And then, afterwards, what I see is that people have a different pace of like how much they surrender to this path that they've illuminated. You're an example of someone who was very ready, ripe for this massive change in your life, maybe because you'd had severe anxiety that was kind of debilitating to you. And you are a creator, you're dynamic, you're energetic, you're dynamite at a slumber party.
Dynamite.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So, and I also want to say that what I've found about purpose is that this is a unique way of being that you have. And then from there, once you understand this unique way of being that uplifts and empowers other people, that taps you into the flow, that works magic for other people, that oftentimes is just about your presence. You just being there with the intention of being dynamite at a slumber party. And that's just, people can feel it. And then once you know that, then you can see what are the dreams that are going to enable you to be and express and fulfill your purpose. So Reliable was a dream of a way that you could be this. You could be a leader. You could be that for your colleagues, your partners, your staff, and your clients. You were there just, boom, waking people up. So I got a little sidetracked. What was that?
Oh, no, I was just asking how have you seen it manifest and so on.
Yeah. So sometimes people have a subtle shift where they could have a business or they could have a professional role, and once they have identified their purpose, then they can start to focus on that within their business or within their role. And there aren't massive changes on the outside, but maybe in the past they were just like going to work was just like drudgery. You know, they were bored, they weren't challenged, they weren't really like using the gifts that they have. And then they're able to refocus and start to bring those gifts to what they're doing. And then there are other people who leave businesses, start new businesses. You know, one of my favorite ones is your friend Dean Murphy, who this is at one of your events. His wife came up to me and said, "I think my husband needs to do your VysionQuest retreat." I said, "Does he think he needs to?" And she goes, "I don't know if he knows about it." I said, "Well, it's pretty important that he wants to do it. He knows what it is and that he wants to do it." Because that is one thing I've seen in the past is, you know, if a partner can bring a partner, you know, one partner can be really into it, not really tell their wife what it is. I had that happen one time, and she didn't want to do this deep reflective work, you know. So that was tough. So now I make sure that like anyone who's considering coming, we have a conversation. They know exactly what it is. We can make sure that they're a good fit for it. But anyway, she told him about it. He and I had a chat. He goes, "Yeah, okay, I think it sounds good." And he said, you know, he came because he felt a bit bored. He was a business owner and felt a bit bored by it, not very challenged. Things were sounding almost too easy for him. And he came, did the process, and connected with this dream of sailing around the world. And I think it was about a year later, they sold the business, rented out their home, put stuff in storage, bought a boat in France, flew over with their 2 kids, took them out of school and sailed around the world. And then COVID hit, so it turned into like a 2-year adventure. And we caught up on the way to your bachelor weekend. He got a ride with me, and I got to hear all about that. And it's just, you know, he was saying, this is just something, if we hadn't have done it then, we never would have done it. You know, the kids would be in high school and have their, you know, their friends and their sports.
I think Dean would still be at sea if he could be.
Yeah.
He's got the 2 kids, but I know Dean was at my poker night last week, and that, I think, for the rest of his life and Chantel's and the kids is going to be something that they will never have taken away from them. I mean, that was an extraordinary thing that they did, buying a 42-foot Bali catamaran in France, because Chantel, of course, is French, picking it up. And we were in France last year, actually, and we went to where they bought their boat, Cass and I, and Chantel organised our whole itinerary. And we were sitting there on the port in La Rochelle, my wife and I, with our feet hanging over the edge of the thousands-year-old port, having ice cream, looking at the boats and just thinking about that and thinking of you and how instrumental you were in making that dream happen. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is Rick's work, you know. And Dean, to this day, you know, says openly it was, you know, a highlight of his life and the memories that were collected. Because, you know, I think the older I get, the more I realise there is no guarantees. I've lost friends to disease, suicide, all kinds of things the older that you get. And you realise that if you are on this earth, you just don't know. One of my very best friends in the world lives 1 floor beneath me in the building where I live. Went off to a super successful guy in his career, made millions of dollars, all of that. Was taking his beautiful daughter over to see Santa Claus a year and a bit ago. Whereas in the North Pole, you know, they actually have a Santa Claus village, and they were talking about it all year, and they've got their own train that takes you in there and everything. And he got to the hotel and was in excruciating pain, and they rushed him to hospital. And he spent 3 months touch and go, got a staph infection, nearly killed him. This was a year and a half ago. He now lives in Bali, and you know, has been there for a year and a half now, and just said, I come back to Australia for work to run my business now and then, but it's more or less under management now, and he comes back and runs it part-time. But I've never seen a human being happier. He's so happy. He's spending so much time with his wife and kids. You just don't know what is around the corner in life. And we had dinner just last week, and he said, Adam, you just don't know how long you got, mate. Like, you got to make sure that you are doing what matters most in your life. And I mean, I know, Rick, even today, I still struggle with it as an entrepreneur, of that fine line between making sure that you are living in the moment. And whenever I spend time with you, my energy just adjusts, because I can feel this sense of calmness and connection that radiates from you. And it's just such a beautiful reminder for me to, like, dude, like, remember those retreats, remember this. Like, it's just muscle memory. So I'm super grateful to get any time with you, because it's, I sort of, well, I think I've said it a number of times from stage, you're my sort of happiness guru, you know. A walking reminder of the frailty and beauty of life.
This is why, talking about the seed of where the process came from is after I got sick, my life changed so much, so fast, and in how I was, and how I started to communicate for the first time, really, because I used to be really aloof. Like, that's kind of my nature, be kind of private, reserved, and aloof, and hide in the background, that kind of thing, to where I started to go, no, this is the moment right here. Like, if I love someone, I'm going to say it here. If I appreciate something, I'm going to say I appreciate it right now. And
that's so powerful, man.
And I wanted to the seed was, how can I help people have an experience like this, where they wake up to how precious this moment is, as well as who they are and what their true direction is. How do you do that without putting a gun to someone's head, without them having the diagnosis of a life-threatening illness? So, that was just a wish for many years, until I finally just did the best I could do, and went from there.
Kind of reminds me of a great movie, which I don't know if you've seen it, called American Beauty, with Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, I love it.
I love that film. And, setting aside Kevin's, personal life and later years, the movie is phenomenal. That scene where the guy's watching the paper bag, the shopping bag just blow around in the wind, and when he has that awakening, Kevin Spacey's character has that awakening in life, and just,
this is my life. I can do what pleases me.
When he goes through the drive-thru in the car and says, "You got any jobs, guys?" He's like 50-year-old dude, and they said, he says, "I want a job with as little responsibility as possible." It ends up at a DriveThru Checkout. But it's such a beautiful film in reminding us the frailty and beauty of this experience that we have, and so look, this is an interview that could go on for forever, but I think at this point I'd like to just sort of, if this is a pod that has resonated with you in any way, and you're feeling that calling, because even now you probably can feel it inside, if this is something for you, then reach out to Rick, because I've done it twice, the actual in-person physical retreat, and that's what I love doing. I can't recommend it highly enough to go and give yourself the gift of this. So how do people connect with you today, Rick, if they want to hang out with you for a week or join one of your virtual programs? What's the best way to connect?
Best way is go to the website, VysionQuest.com, and it's spelled with a Y, VYSION, Quest.
VysionQuest.com,
Yeah, there's a bunch of free resources on there, links to podcasts, a masterclass that I have, free vision sessions, and currently I'm running some mini workshops. But these things change, so I don't know if these will be available in the future. But and basically, you reach out, send me an email. I'm happy to have a chat and see if you're a good fit for the program. And it's like when people, once they kind of understand the basics of it, it's this thing where people just feel it. Like maybe even while you're listening to this podcast, your hairs stood up on your arm, or something was like tickling in your belly, and you're just going, it's very difficult to put this experience into words. This is an experience beyond words, but the energy of it is really what it's about. So people can feel that when they hear us talk about it, or they see a message on social media or something like that. There is a resonance. There's this thing that's just going, something in that. So
that voice that's dying to come out is saying, Adam, do this, And this is me, for you guys watching at home or listening, this is me giving you permission to do this, because a lot of times people just don't give themselves permission to make an investment into themselves, not just the financial investment, but the investment. Like, I know there's probably a lot of mums that are super committed with the kids, and dads as well, that are like, I can't, it's too much to put on my partner, or no, like, put the oxygen mask on first, because you will come home a better version of you for your family. You'll come home more peaceful, more connected. So this is me giving you permission to just put you first for a moment, invest the time, invest the money. These retreats do cost money to put on, and Rick has people that help him do it as well. So yeah, guys, please, if you feel this, this is me telling you as a friend, there's not one person that I would not recommend this to. It's just so powerful and interventionary, and gets you back in connection with this wonderful, incredible gift that you have. If you're watching this and you're listening to this, as bad as you might think it is, just know that you are blessed beyond measure. I don't know how else to say it. You really are, and Rick will help you remember that and become a shining, peaceful example of that, and return you back to that state of flow and happiness and joy that is just hiding underneath layers and layers of stuff that modern life puts on us. And so, yeah, please reach out to Rick. Rick, brother, thank you for your time as always. Super appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for changing my life and being such a steadfast guide for me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Adam. Yeah. Thank you for your courage in doing this work, and in just taking it and running with it and being the rising tide for so many people.
Yeah. Love you, mate.
Love you too.
Cheers.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. Here's a fun but sad fact for us. Most people who love our content are still not subscribed to the channel. Now, I totally get it. Normally, when you subscribe to something, it involves giving up your email address, and then you get bombarded with emails, people trying to sell you stuff and all of that. But in the world of YouTube, that doesn't happen. We don't get your email address and we don't bombard you. All it means is when you log into YouTube, you'll see our channel there and you can easily click on it and check out our latest content. Now, here's the deal that I will make with you. If you can find it in your heart to click on the little subscribe button below, I promise you that we will get better and better guests on this show so that we can interview them for you to give you better and deeper insights from people that have really done some crazy good stuff. And I promise you that we'll be working harder than ever to make this show even better for you. So that's the deal. If you click on that little subscribe button, hit the notifications bell as well, we would be deeply grateful, and we'll make a better show for you going forward. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.